let's start with this new bill from the United States to three countries. And I don't know if we can call Taiwan a country.
Yeah, politically
But,
incorrect.
yeah, to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. When China and Russia look at this new bill, what do they feel about this bill, in your opinion? I want to separate two type of feelings coming out of this new bill, militarily and politically. How do they feel about this new bill?
On the Russian side, I can tell you only from the Russian point of view. Obviously, I hear something from China, but I'm no sinologist, so I do not quote me on that. But on the Russian side, I mean, it's expected. They look at it and they already have been pretty straightforward that it's not going to change anything. For starters, it's not $61 billion. It is in reality 7 or 12. And, you know, for $7 billion, you cannot buy anything in the United States in terms of weapons because this is primarily gigantically overpriced things. So, you know, you might get some shells, whatever they have now. And yeah, they might still push more ATACMS. But other than that, it just... So it's the fact that Russians are now laughing, you know, their butts off, because actually, these are not actually aid packages; these are loans. Which is, and most importantly, well, they know that Ukraine is not going to pay it. They are in there. They kind of went from, as Dmitry Orlov today beautifully put in one his last posts, they went into complete psychosis. They not even in panic anymore. So, and Ukraine will be paying a loan on 61 billion, majority of which will stay in the United States. So militarily, it's absolutely nothing. But what is most important, and that's where it is the most important, many people don't talk about it. Well, they talk, but it's the political statement of allowing the Biden regime, I can say now, to expropriate those $8 billion of Russian assets, which are still remaining in the North America, primarily, you know, Canada too. Canada stole also Russian planes. So, and that opens the floodgates in terms of pressure on Europeans to do a big step to allow to expropriate those 300 billion. If $8 billion is not biggie, neither for Russia nor, you know, United States, but for Europe, releasing $300 billion of Russian assets, it's over. It's over for dollar too, but that's what, again, I read today. It's one of the best Dmitri's post in a long while. Usually they are very good, but this one is brilliant. That yeah, they are psychotic now. They do not even understand what they're doing. But I think so that this type of pressure on Europe is pretty much is about finishing Europe off before the dollar, obviously with the United States being the initiator of the stealing, that's what it is, stealing money, is finished off. So, and, you know, now, yeah, how to put it politely, I think so there, even within the Washington, they understand that they will have to kill this present dollar as it exists, which is, you know, and that is the most important part of this bill. Then militarily, just, you know, so as Russian military says, and President Putin and everybody else, that, yeah, it makes no difference whatsoever. Even Ukrainians say that it makes no difference whatsoever.
We know that this bill could not be so much important when it comes to the weapons for Ukraine, but how about the money that goes to political elites and military elites in Ukraine? Despite having this war against Russia, we can survive, we can live here in Ukraine, but we know that behind the scene, this bill is so important for the survival of this government in Ukraine.
Yeah, it is primarily political, although they were saying that it's not. But we have to keep in mind that for the last 2 years, Ukraine is not really a state. It is basically the entity which is supported by primarily American and European money. And they wanted to keep it in some judicial form, for viewing it as a ram against Russia. And they wanted Russians to go in big time and start spending, those resources, and then the economy collapses. But obviously, quite opposite happened, So, but the point is, at this stage, they never had the plan B to start with. Okay, so the only thing they can do now is to continue in some form to pretend to support Ukraine, but we know that actually, given what is happening on the front, which of course shapes the geopolitical reality, not much chance to, for this entity to survive the way it was conceived by all those big brainiacs from the CIA and Pentagon and things of this nature. So yeah, and they can spend more money. They will be stolen much of it. So, and at this stage, what you're going to do if you are, for example, some quote unquote strategist in the White House, what are you going to do? You have the people who do not understand where it all leads to in terms of their political fallout, except for understanding that their sinecures will be over and their political careers will be over. But this is where it is all going. So what's left? To continue to do the same thing it's like, how to put it, there people tend to scratch or warm their part of body which hurts. You might have simple muscle spasm, or you might have the four stage cancer there. So in this case, they have the stage 4 cancer, and they still continue to use the, how to put it, Band-Aid and aspirin on it. They will continue to do it until it's over. So that's what it is.
We've heard that Ukrainian soldiers are surrendering, and even Azov battalion, they're not willing to go to the battlefield. Do you think that this bill is some sort of political move on the part of the United States to convince them that they're still helping them, they're still supporting them, to convince them to even go to the battlefield, to even die for these political reasons that we're witnessing right now in Ukraine?
Possible, very, very well could be. And most likely it's one of the part of the considerations which they gave to this bill. And after Mr. Johnson has been had with the meeting with the powers that be, who told him to, you better do it or else. And or else, so we can only, well, we don't have to speculate. We know what is this all about. Even Colonel McGregor said it, that it's, but the point is that, yeah, they want to convince, doesn't matter. That's the whole point. Again, they look at the structure of this bill and look at the basically, how to put it politely, what is embedded in it. These are loans. That means what? It's over. They cannot support this anymore. And again, if you look strategically, and especially what is now circulating, is it true or not? I don't know. But there are rumors, okay, let's put it this way, from surrounding of Mr. Trump. If Mr. Trump wins election, if he is allowed to run, or if God forbid, is not killed, there is the talk that they will crush the dollar. They will have to, let inflation loose, because if they don't do it, I mean, we're going to have even worse situation. We'll have the complete implosion of the whole American, economy, which will affect, obviously, many people in the world, stupid people who invested in the US stock market. So you already have this thing there. So in this particular case, it all comes down to, not all, but much of it comes down to also PR issue, because in the end, they are giving them some dollars, which are inconsequential in the largest scheme of things, because we are facing during the election and after election some sort of calamity. It's going to affect very many people.
We've heard that it seems that there are some rumors, as you put rumors out, and that the French army is going to Odessa and to fight Russians. Do you think these rumors have anything to do with reality?
No, I don't think so. But even if it is, so what? What difference does it make? It makes no difference whatsoever. Obviously, Russians milk this issue properly, as would anybody do, saying that, yeah, you kind of, just increasing the risk of the, nuclear war and all that. But no, I mean, there is no NATO structure which supports this type of the, let's call, operation. If they put 1,000 French troops, which we would know, for now there is not much about it. So I assume they are not there. And Russians are very calm about it. But even if it is there, so what? They will be killed. And what's France going to do about it? NATO is going to be totally out of the, so to speak, the loop here, because in this particular case, there's no attack on NATO countries. It's intervention on French side. Sure, if they want to fight Russia, Russians say, hey, good luck, bring us your Leclercs. So, we would love to burn those too, So there you go. Other than that, what can they do? They don't have force. They don't have training. They don't have anything, the sustainability of this force. They don't have numbers. So there you go.
If something happens before the election, the presidential election 2024 in the United States, let's assume that Russia wins decisively on the battlefield and that everything's over for Biden for his presidential election. Do you think, is NATO ready to risk a direct conflict with Russia?
Even if it would, the main question is with what? You see, you have to always look at the capability, and I'm talking about like not potential. Even potential is not there. We already know, and I write about it for the second decade now. All those economic numbers, all those, GDP numbers are fake. Most of it is complete, cooking books, basically. That's what it is. Apart from the model itself is garbage. It doesn't work. You already saw yourself, basically, the proof is in the pudding. Those idiots believe that Russia will collapse and they will, sanctions and, they can have the control of Kremlin. So that tells you the level of expertise and how they plan. That means they cannot plan anything. But the point is, in the end, what is the kinetic potential? What can they do? I'll give you example, not example. I will not disclose or huge secret if I'll tell that preparation of the army, which is capable, for example, to contest, let's say, Ukraine. Forget about attacking Russia, but I'm talking about what's left of Ukraine against Russian troops. For NATO, it will take about 10 years to even have some claim, granted that European economies are still operating as even today, which they will not. It's not the issue of if, it's the issue when the complete collapse of the industrial economy of Germany happens, then France follows. The rest of them are inconsequential in terms of the military economic potential. There you go. We're talking about United States collapsing, for crying out loud. So this is like, so yeah, sure, they have nothing to, they can do damage, no doubt about it. Do they want to go into the direct, indeed, nuclear conflict? I doubt it.
It's so amazing when you hear Stoltenberg says that the NATO countries would increase their defense budget from 2% of their GDP to 2.5%. When we look at in the middle of this war in Ukraine, we had a little conflict between Iran and Israel, and we saw what's happening just for a few hours, how much they have to spend in order to keep this war, some sort of defense actions working for Israel. When they're talking about 2 to 2.5, it simply means nothing. But it seems that they're trying to convince their audience that it's a big deal. We are doing something in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's the only thing they do. And again, you have to understand, primarily PR. And you had Jacques Beau, you had Larry Wilkerson, you had many people, we are singing pretty much same tune. well, with different variations, but it's not in harmony, but very close to it. So yeah, they will increase it by some billions of dollars. Let me ask you a question. You know what? Let me put it this way. France, which by the way refused to use, obviously, sanctions and all that, the Soyuz 2.1 rocket, which was used for commercial and other, purposes from the French Guiana, so they have issues with their heavy carrier. They do not have the launches anymore. And even if they would have it, they cannot place the proper satellite constellation, which is crucial for the conducting modern operations. They rely practically completely on the United States constellation. But then again, United States economically is definitely, dwarfs France or whatever. But even United States has issues. So no matter what you spend now, first, you don't have industrial base, which used to be there. You do not have cadres. You do not have proper educational backgrounds of many people. You look at how they teach them, my gosh, that's horrifying. And I'm talking about STEM. I'm not talking about this volume, huge volume of people with degrees in the gender studies or whatever, or literature. Nothing wrong with having a degree in literature, well, except for Boris Johnson, of course. But other than that, I mean, it's what are you going to do? You have to have tools. You have to have machinery. And we're talking about machinery, some of which is absolutely unique. Especially, for example, just to give you example, Japan bought number of the huge carousel machining centers from first USSR and then Russia. They love to talk about how Russia is backward, but guess what? Without these carousel centers, you won't be able to do anything about, for example, submarines or serious, other types of the weapon systems. The table of one of the carousel is 30 meters in diameter. Can you imagine what it could do? It basically can literally form the, sections of the submarine hulls, just to give you one example. Can they do their full-blown space program? I doubt it. And so we go over it, and when you look at this, it's just like, yeah, they can dream whatever they want, but you have to have, and again, look at Boeing, okay? It is a catastrophe for the company which was the pride of the America and one of the greatest, corporations in the history of humanity. Look what happens to it. Today, another 737 lost the freaking landing gear in South Africa. I mean, it's catastrophe.
I think we have to consider, Andrei, that in a near future, we're going to see something like Afghanistan. The whole literally collapsing all of a sudden. And nothing would work. For 20 years, they stayed in Afghanistan. They did everything. And after all, you see everything collapsing all of a sudden. When we talk about Afghanistan, we talk about Taliban. Taliban is nothing to do with the Russian government. It's not even comparable what's going on right now in Ukraine.
As much as I detest legacy media in the West, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. But you have to give it the credit where the credit is due. When Washington Post started to publish what is called the Washington Notes, I believe, on Afghanistan, they've been lying about victory in Afghanistan for 10 years. Well, in reality, they already knew they lost. And that's Afghanistan. Yes, this is counterinsurgency. This is not a war. It is actually high-intensity police operation. That's what it is. So now you're talking about the largest combined arms war after World War II. And we're talking about, I mean, absolute, many people in Pentagon, they cannot even wrap their brains around, the scale of the destruction and, for example, losses of Ukraine, armed forces of Ukraine. They never encountered anything like, they have no experience with this. As I already stated, this is, take any US general, and put him in charge, he will lose, I mean, he won't be able to command battalion, let alone regiment there, So, and now when you look at this, yes, it is all about PR. It was, how to put it, it's all about convincing people to give their money to whatever the purposes they needed. Most of them are enriching American military-industrial complex, obviously, which completely corrupted, their Congress. So basically, you can see yourself, as the latest vote on this bill has shown, it's not United States territory, really. Most of them are in the pockets of the Israeli lobby, some other lobbies, and military-industrial complex and intelligence services such as CIA. So, and most of them compromise, most likely. So what do you expect? They cannot do anything but to kind of simmer in this environment where they, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, and greed, desire for power, any kind of power. It's sociopathic and psychotic situation right now, sadly, in this country and in Europe. Europe even worse, because they are totally dependent on the United States. They are basically chihuahuas, lapdogs. So, and when you look at this, yes, this is the end of the era. We're looking at the historic change, because the system ceased to operate. It cannot operate anymore. And we already see there, the inflation is there. Everybody who goes to the grocery store knows that all they say, they are lying, basically. You look at the gas prices, you look at the milk prices, you look at the burger prices, and everything just like that. And the worst is yet to come. Now, the question is now, what will Russia do? Russia can easily sink Biden. Russians are not into this political game anymore, because they are completely detached now, very comfortable from the combined West. Can Russia sink Biden? I don't even want to say Biden, the whatever who runs Biden, campaign. Yeah, they can go now and take, for example, Kharkov, for example, go to Kharkov. Will they do it? Why? That's another problem. Why would you risk lives of the Russian servicemen when you're already accomplishing what you do, by basically doing what Russians do? Today we have another two villages, Acheretina, which was the key kind of anchor of the operational level defense there. It fell to Russians. It's already, the flag is there. In Krasnogorovka, they are inside the city. So yeah, why rush? When you just basically collapse it brick by brick, and the front is collapsing. Anybody who in Pentagon who didn't drink Kool-Aid, they certainly will come probably even to Lloyd Austin and tell him, dude, look, the front is collapsing. What are you going to do? They are completely in this, vicious circle of the mutual lying, and it's so corrupt. It's so out of the loop of any normality and competence. I don't have enough descriptive powers to describe it to you. And I lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Andrei, on the other side, we know this continuation of this war in Ukraine has a lot to do with what's going on in 2024 for Biden. And on the other hand, we know that how they're obsessed with sending a message to China, considering what's going on in Taiwan, because they don't want to send a message that if Ukraine falls, they're gonna have the same situation in Taiwan, because they couldn't defeat Russia, they couldn't weaken Russia. These were primary goals of the West in this conflict. Right now, the secondary goals would be just not sending a bad message to China that they can do the same in Taiwan. It seems that they're showing an offensive attitude, but they are really in defensive when it comes to their attitude. And do you think this continuation, how much of the policy of continuation of the conflict in Ukraine comes to this message that they want to send to China?
Yeah, certainly it's there. They thought that they can send message, but of course, when the plan completely collapsed, and again, recall their fundamental strategy, or whatever passes for strategy. None of them are capable of doing strategy because they are illiterate people. But They wanted, we go in with Ukraine to Russia, squeeze it, collapse Putin's regime, install our, marionette in Kremlin, get to the resources of Russia, and then begin to strangle China, which of course they view as the existential threat. Of course, suddenly everything collapsed, nothing works. Now, today, some dude, without naming him, from some intelligence thing, was reported by Defense One, by other, even Russia Today reported about it. He says that, China may be huge economically and militarily, but we, America, and I quote, I will be making video tomorrow about, we have experience of fighting wars. After that, I started laughing my butt off. So you know what? In order to have experience fighting wars, you have to show the winning record. Okay, so if we produce any kind of analogy, let's say with baseball, they won't be playing in the league, they will be playing in some local, county league for whatever, high schoolers, Now they pretend that they're in this big league. The reason they say that we can deploy weapons faster than China is. How to put it politely, this is complete nuts. You are talking about people who are capable only of producing PR. They do not understand that with China definitely not having big battle experience, combat experience. But again, if they think that they can impress China with actions in Afghanistan or Iraq, they certainly, I have a bridge to sell them. But the problem is they don't even understand that China, for all its lack of experience, it has their long-range anti-shipping missiles and hypersonic missiles which outrange anything which United States Navy or Air Force has. So it doesn't take a very big, how to put it politely, combat experience than to receive the targeting, press proper buttons, develop firing solution, and press the launch of fire button, red one. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's, a kind of, ivory type thing. So yeah, what are you going to do after that? We already saw in Israel, what's going to happen, okay? We already saw, I looked at the list. No patriots, why? You know why? Because no matter how many they will send, not that they have them, they will be annihilated. They will do nothing, absolutely. They can shoot down, geranium or two of those drones. That's about it. Maybe some aerial target from the ambush. So there you go. And so it's all chest thumping. And so these guys, they don't have any experience with the combined arms operations of scale against peer. And then, of course, you have the situation with, in terms of missilery, China is way ahead of United States. Good luck attacking them. See what happens.
It seems that there is an exhibition. There would be an exhibition in Moscow showing Leopard tanks, the tanks coming from the West. They want to show this to Russians. We know that there is a lot of people in Russia who remember the war against Nazis. And right now, when they're showing these Leopard tanks, these coming from Germany again.
Finally, Germans finally reached Moscow.
Yeah, fine, exactly. And we know the weapons from Sweden. We know Sweden was on the part of Nazis in those days, and right now you have a mixture of countries who were against Nazis and who were with Nazis, or combined in this combination against Russia.
Yeah,
I think that would be a contradictory feeling for Russians, how all of these countries are against them and why they're doing this and what's the main goal behind all of this for the people in Russia. That would be hugely touching in my opinion, in Russia and what's going on right now in Ukraine and how they're doing this to Russia, to Ukrainians, even Ukrainians who are feeling, because we know that in Russia there are a lot of traditional connection between Ukrainians and Russians.
The feeling is very simple, and this is now being openly discussed finally in Russian mass media and major media. For example, yesterday I was the piece of Irina Altsnis, or no, the other guy in Vzгляд and RIA News and all that, and they write that, good God, thank you for special military operations. We completely threw off the shackles of the complex of inferiority in the front of the West. And I'm telling you, I'm traveling to Russia periodically, and never in my life did I see so much contempt towards West. And actually, Russians saying, you are like dudes, you are lower league. And this comes through the obviously material wealth, which is in Russia. Not everything is rosy in Russia. There is all kinds of problems, as it's supposed to be. But Russians now recognize we are a very big deal in the world. Not only militarily, that was expected. Militarily, Russia, you cannot defeat Russians on the battlefield in the war. You can win battle or two, as Wehrmacht did, for example, but you're going to lose the war. And Russians will end up with their flag in Berlin or Paris or wherever they've been doing. So, and that suddenly it's like, no, I mean, technologically, my gosh, we're pretty good, you know? So, and suddenly you have obviously you have no need in terms of the consumer goods. Their stores and grocery stores are packed. So, and there are many Europeans, Westerners come to Russia and they look at this and say, my God. So that's what it is. Simple as that. Nothing really special about the West anymore. And if you look attentively at the development, for example, of internal tourism in Russia, it just grows, I mean, exponentially. With it comes obviously what? Infrastructure. A lot of money is there. There is a lot of real wealth. Of course, as anywhere, there are poor people, there are people who are underprivileged, no doubt about it. But overall, and especially what would be termed as the middle class, it's huge in Russia. You know, Russian problem, do you know what? Parking space. You cannot park your freaking car anywhere, you know, so because it's all, you know, just all cars. You know, so, and that's what is happening right now, and a lot of things are happening. It will take, I mean, course of 2-hour lectures just to, you know, scratch the surface of this. And I mean, those people in the West who didn't lose their complete brains completely, they know what is going on. And that's what we have now with Russians. Russia is gladly detaching herself from the West. And as already stated, Russians want Iron Curtain.
In 2021, after those letters from Putin to NATO and Biden administration, Russia finally in 2022 decided to go in Ukraine, to put an end to the conflict in Ukraine. When would that moment come to Taiwan, if there would be some? And in your opinion, is Chinese getting to that point that say enough is enough? We are not going to continue with this policy of pulling and pushing and nothing coming out. We are trying to, because we know that Chinese are not willing to go doing some sort of military operation. We know that Russia wanted that as well. They tried so hard. They did everything to bring to do some sort of political settlement in Ukraine, but they couldn't do that. We know at the end of the day, there would be a completely similar scenario for the case of Taiwan. But the question would be, when would be that point? When would be that moment that China says, that's enough? We are getting tired of this policy.
We know that United States is developing Ukraine 2.0 in Asia. It is called Philippines. So they want the proxy, which will be shedding blood, because United States is not keen on fighting real wars. It always, and usually it gets to the final of any war when basically the issue is decided. That was the case in World War I, especially so in World War II in Europe. In Pacific, of course, United States Navy and U.S. forces performed admirably and defeated Japan. But the point is that, yeah, they have now Philippines and Japan. That's kind of, you know, this two guys, they're gonna be manipulating in fomenting the conflict between them and China. Obviously, preferably staying behind the stage, you know, so to speak. And but this is a little bit different for me. It's very difficult, as I already stated. I'm not sinologist. I know Chinese are very patient people, and they think very long, you know, term. Not that it necessarily always gets them anywhere good, but they definitely view it differently. Their timeline, so to speak, their perception of time is different from, let's say, the United States and the West in general. So when it will happen, I don't know. But we know that depending on how the United States corrupts Japan, which is, Japan essentially is the American proxy there, and how they will be able to foment trouble and anti-Chinese sentiment, which was always there. I know that in Philippines it's there, and certainly in Japan there are a lot of bad blood between China and Japan, obvious, for obvious reasons. Japan committing incredible atrocities in World War II in China. So when the United States will be able to foment it, and when we have a really extensive, probably the instances of the not clashes, but naval primarily, you know, contacts, let's put it this way, then maybe, but putting there some kind of the special forces in some, you know, in some island, which is like the whole company of special forces, it takes one missile, you know, DF-21 to just wipe out the whole thing there, you know. So it's primarily political moves for now. Militarily, the professionals will know when it's, in Russia, it's called угрожаемый период, which is the literally threatening period of time. This is what precedes the war. I don't think so we're there yet. Once it gets there, if it gets there, who knows, you know? So can China be forced to act as essentially Russia was after 8 years, as you correctly stated, avoiding the conflict? Possible, but don't forget, these guys in Washington, they are one-trick ponies. They do, you know, this template, and they think that it works, and it never works, you know. So, and the same is here. So we'll see.
If you remember, we heard that one of the American commanders said in 2025 we're gonna fight with Russia. And when they say something like this, it has to be something behind the scene that somebody comes out and says something ridiculous as this. And this would force China to react, because Russia was reacting to the conflict in Ukraine. And they have, I think at the end of the day, they would force China to react. I don't know when would be that moment, but it would be the destruction of the world, because nobody gonna be safe in this world at that time. And
well, that is why they want Philippines and Japan to fight conventional. They would love to the conventional war and somebody fighting for the United States. And when you put together sort of, again, you have to understand, those people, they live in the confabulated military history and strategies. Look at the U.S. Army field manuals. It's just like written for, beating the, some African tribe in the 18th century. People with the muskets against the people with the, long bows. And that's about it. So, but this is not the case anymore. And one of the things which is very important here, many in Washington, they are convinced that the United States is still the technological, superpower and things of this nature, which it is not anymore. I mean, it's one of the leaders. And again, depends on the type of the or sector, if you wish. But militarily, it is not. It's speak about this constantly. This is TOE, Table of Organization and Equipment of the Force, which is stuck in 90s. Today's 2024. So, and how to put it politely, they will try, because for them, strategically, they think that they know strategy, they don't, that they can disrupt China expansion, economic expansion. Could they? I don't know. But obviously, China has its own very specific idiosyncrasy, so to speak, especially about saving face. But you know what? Again, so much time passed since those times that China economically dwarfs the United States. Dwarfs. And I mean, so, and these people still think that, you know, they can win. They already lost. Somebody has to tell them, you know, they can give them the message, you lost, it's over, you know. So, but they will try, yeah. So, and as I already stated, Russians have been very good at avoiding war with Ukraine for 8 years, until, as I spoke before, угрожаемый period, the threatening period, which you could see from the composition of the forces, which have been actually in the offensive formations. So Russia had to forestall it, and we have the, you know, special military operation unfolded. They will try to, yes, you're correct, repeat this scenario, but how China will react, who knows? You know, I don't know.
Talking about the third country that is receiving aid from this bill would be Israel.
Yeah.
And unbelievable how Biden is shooting himself in the foot. When you see these things happening within the Democratic Party, what's their policy, in your opinion? This is domestic policy. This is how they totally connected with this Israeli lobby in the United States, and
Yeah.
how they would influence the Democratic Party and their policy in Israel, in Palestine. And what's in their mind, in your opinion? When it comes to China and Russia, we totally understand what's going on and what do they want to do. And when it comes to Israel, what's their policy? What's their main goal, in your opinion?
And they are all in the pocket and influenced by APAC, American Israeli Political Action Committee, and many of them are probably subverted by Israel and Mossad. And so, yeah, what can I say? You know, look at the Epstein Island. They are all in some ways compromised and blackmailed, and it's over. That's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. The system ceased to operate properly, because it's actually United States is just merely bully on the Israeli leash. You know, Netanyahu was on record, I own US Congress. 26 standing ovations. There you go. They can kill a political career or discredit just about anybody there. And then, of course, you have this 20 million of this death cult of the Christians United for Israel, the main driving force behind the Republican Party primarily. So Israel very actively tried to press this idea of the Christian Zionism and equating the real healthy conservative movement primarily with the issues of Israel and Zionism. And doing this, I mean, you know, what can I say? So I can only repeat, political systems ceased to function. So you have now the other people who, you know, push forward with their interests, and there you go. United States doesn't exist as a nation anymore. It is several nations.
Andrei, we've heard that the government in Niger is asking the United States to take out its troops from Niger. And after many years, I think it's a huge change that is happening in Africa right now. And people may pay not much attention to what's going on in Africa, but it's a huge change what's going on in Africa and how they are getting tired of these policies in Africa. What's your take on this new attitude in Africa?
In Washington, I think so. It's same old, same old. were hegemon, which they are not anymore. So, oh, Africa is our theater of, interest and theater of operations. They have African command, even in Pentagon. Changes nothing really because obviously Africans are not stupid, okay? And people who are in political power, they definitely understand their own interest. And their own interest with countries like China or Russia, because they not only, they do build infrastructure and, they share the economic spoils. United States is different, but yeah, it's Africa is a tremendously rich continent, tremendously rich, especially in some materials and minerals which are critical for the modern civilization. So the United States will be trying to operate there. But Niger is just one of the last examples. Russians successfully, with Africans, of course, kicked French out of Sahel. That's why Macron is so butthurt. Butthurt. Let's call it this way. It's not the only way why he is butthurt, but the point is that how to put it politely, it's the fight for the resources too, So it's kind of almost natural for the United States to be in the game. The problem, as I already stated, what kind of resources it can really allocate for that. We already know that United States cannot fight economically anything. Forget about, something like serious operation. And Africa is going to be, how to put it politely, free. It's still going to go through this huge historical age of tribulations and things of this nature, but eventually, I think so, it should prosper.
Just to wrap up this session, Andrei, it's unbelievable when you hear people are talking about that Trump would change everything. What's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Israel, what's going on between the United States and China. And we know that at the end of the day, it was Trump who was just getting rid of these armed control treaties with Russia. How do you see Trump dealing with this conflict between Russia and the United States in Ukraine?
Well, Trump talks too much, obviously. A lot of what he talks is complete baloney, obviously. As you correctly stated, he was the guy who really accelerated dramatically the destruction of the US-Russian relations. And he cannot call anymore Putin and say, hey, Vlad, remember we've been friends. No. Putin is going to be talking to him the same way he would talk, for example, if to imagine that Biden or whoever in his place would call Kremlin and ask, can I talk to, Russian president? He will be talking to him the same way. All this, what buddy, relations, it's all crap, So, and Trump essentially, as I already stated in the beginning when we started talking today, the rumor which circulates, he understands, obviously, because he is more alert than Biden, that dollar is over. It's just how you kind of arrange it. But considering the fact that he's a very impulsive and narcissistic guy, you know what? He is like the owner of his word. He can give it, he can take it back. So, he's absolute master of his word. And so this is, you remember what happened in the first term. And in this case, it comes down to what we discussed today. Would Russia give Trump a present by demolishing, Biden administration chances for victory by, just wiping the floor with whatever remains of Ukraine? Or maybe Russians will do it after that. It depends, So United States have never been dependent that much on Russia as it is today. And what Russia will do, they certainly can spin it. They have the bunch of the crooks, with the journalism degrees and all those CIA, guys, and all that who spin things. But you cannot hide the destruction of the best proxy in American history. Armed forces of Ukraine, my gosh, South Vietnam were nowhere near to what that forces were. They are all dead, sadly. So, and what can I say?
Even the crisis between the United States and Iran, that embassy, the American embassy in Iran. We know that that was the deal between Democrats, and then Reagan came.
Yeah. And actually, the Iranians wanted to really rub it in for Carter. So they released them on the day of the Reagan taking the oath, and so it's just like let's put it this way: they don't know the world outside. America always was weak on this field, but now it is completely ignorant. They do not understand what is happening. And as Dmitry Orlov perfectly stated, it's psychosis. They don't even understand what's coming. They don't understand how it's coming. And everything they knew about the world is collapsing, already collapsed, basically. They do not understand war. They never faced a real one in the last 80 years.